Hello everyone, my name is Ben Chambley, and this year in ISM I'll be studying audio engineering under the mentorship of David Burt. My quote for this year is, "A bird does not sing because it has an answer, it sings because it has a song." This quote's become very relevant to my life, especially recently. I've made the decision to major in electrical engineering in college, and most people thought I'd be majoring in music or something else music related, but recently I actually talked to a good friend of mine, Michael Plubel, and he kind of told me, "Do you like doing music?" And I said, "Yes, I really like doing music." But he asked me, "Would you consider it a career?" And the idea or the thought of making music a career, something you have to do every day, it just sounds like it's ruining it for me. Music is something I do just because I like doing it. I don't want to have to do it. Just like the bird does not sing because it has an answer. It sings just because it doesn't have to sing. It just sings because it has a song. So as I was saying? Okay. I'm a senior this year, class of 2015. I've been in band for 6 years, and music is a passion of mine. I love writing music. I like playing music, and recently I've gotten into audio engineering, which is kind of the technical side of music. Next year I'll be attending the University of Texas at Arlington, and then I'll transfer to UT, part of the coordinated acceptance program that UT has. So what is audio engineering? Like I said, audio engineering is the technical side of music. Audio engineers edit, arrange, mix, and compose music. It can be a producer, someone who just takes the music and makes a label out of it, makes it big. The technician, someone who repairs the mix board or designs how the sine wave from a bass is transmitted to a speaker, anything like that. And there's composers, people who actually go on the software and create the music from scratch. For my research this year, I researched a lot of topics, but these were my 4 main ones that I enjoyed the most. Analog versus digital was my first one, gain staging second, recording different instruments 4th, 5th, and 6th, and song structure was my 7th research assessment that I did this year. Analog and digital recording, it really interested me from the start. It was one of the primary things I wanted to look into because I'd always heard about the analog superiority over digital recording, analog being recording with tapes and wheels and older machines, and digital being with, GarageBand, modern machines like that. What I learned through my research is that digital is really easy to use. It's very user-friendly. It's click this button, put this here, you have a note, you have a song in about an hour or 2 hours. But it's kind of plain. It doesn't have the characteristics of sound that analog does. Analog, however, it's very difficult to work. In order to place a note, you have to write the note on the tape, put the tape through the machine reads the tape, you've created a note. And imagine doing that for an entire song. I don't even know how many notes are in a single song. Digital is also cheap, it's affordable for people. Like the program I use, Logic Pro 10, is $200, sounds expensive, but for what it is, a digital audio workstation, or DAW as I'll say as I go along in this presentation, it has everything you need to make songs, movie scores, music videos. Just $200. You can do anything with that. However, in order to recreate that with an analog setup, you're looking at 5 figures of just audio equipment. Plus, tape is very expensive too. It has to be a certain thickness, a certain length. And if you want to get that sound that analog does, the warm, crisp sound of vinyl, some people say it's worth it, some people say it's not worth it, but people just have their preferences. I've been to 6 different studios throughout my ISM journey, and 2 of them have been completely analog, 3 of them have been completely digital, and the other one was a hybrid studio. Gain staging and DAW, this is one of the favorite things for me to study because it's really where the math comes out. Gain staging is basically setting up your band. If you're in a Logic session or in a Pro Tools or whatever you want to call it, you have your guitar, your bass, your drums, your singer. They're not all in one straight line when they perform. What you're trying to do is you're trying to emulate as if you were at a rock concert and you are just have the singer right in the front and center, 2 guitars to the left, maybe the bass to the right, and the drummer in the back. What gain staging does is it treats a song like a coordinate plot with an x-axis, a y-axis, and a z-axis. And what it does is it allows you to not only place sounds where you want them to make it, so you can have an interesting kind of sound through headphones, through panning it left and right. It also allows you to record separately for precision. So if you want to do guitars, then basses, then drums, then singer, all separately, you can do that. Instead of doing just one time with everyone, if one person messes up, you have to do it all over again. Instead, you can just do individually. If they mess up, they just have to do it again, and it won't take that much longer. I liked this one a lot, like I said, because it did the coordinate graph thing, but also you can do a lot of things with gain. Like you see these two knobs over here. This is what a typical gain operator looks like. The left one allows you to make all the sound go to the left part of your headphone, and the right one makes it all go to the right. And I really find you can make some interesting sounds with that through headphones. Unfortunately, it doesn't transfer very well through speakers, because speakers, if you're standing too far to the left and you get only the left sound, it makes some pretty distorted music. Recording different instruments. This one was actually essential for me because around October and November, a friend of mine really wanted to record herself playing for her college audition at USC and Michigan and UCLA. She plays French horn. I've hardly recorded vocals before on microphones. I'm kind of new to this, but it really intrigued me because each instrument's different, so I thought, they're probably going to have different recording setups too. So the first one I researched was French horn, and I learned that French horn microphones, you need to have a small microphone in the front and then a large one in the back because the bell faces the back. This will get you the best, clearest French horn sound. But I didn't stop there either. I also researched how to record basic woodwind instruments and basic brass instruments too. And generally with woodwinds, you only need one microphone, just face the end where the sound comes out. And for brass, you need two, one behind the horn and one in front of the horn. I also did a research on vocals, and vocal recording is probably the most debated and the hottest topic for people who discuss audio engineering. You either have vocals with one mic or with two microphones, and it all kind of sounds the same, but to the person who's listening to it, but to the audio engineer who has special headphones, special speakers, they can hear everything that's in the mix, there is a difference. So it all really depends on your own preference. And with vocals, you got to have at least one microphone, and also a pop filter is a necessity, because if you record vocals and you don't have a pop filter, it'll just sound like puh, puh, and tss, tss, because it'll take those harsh sounds out of the mix. Song structure was one of my later research assessments, because I was getting to the point in the year where I started making my own songs. And I've never written a song before. I've never written a full song before. So it really interested me how I kind of wanted to go with, I didn't want to write anything too different from how a normal song goes, so I kind of looked up how a typical pop song is structured. It usually starts out with an introduction. Introduction kind of sets the motif, gives you the general idea of what the music's going to be about, or it just is general, just mood setting. And then a verse, this is normally when the singer comes in or when the lead part comes in. And it's not heavy, it's just cool, and it just sounds nice. And there's no lead, no build up at all. The build comes in the pre-chorus. This is kind of usually an 8-bar phrase that just builds up to usually the climax of the song, the chorus, which is where the energy is released. In the pre-chorus, you'll hear drums building up, crescendoing, you'll hear guitars adding, more instruments adding, just volume increasing, and then you build up to the chorus, which is the hype of the song, the most intense part. It's usually the part that everyone remembers. It's catchy, it's easy to remember, has memorable lyrics most of the time. And after a choruses last between 8, 16, and 32 bars, depending on how fast or slow your song is. Then you have your bridge, which is usually an instrumental only, but there can occasionally be singers in it. And a bridge leads you back into the next verse, and that repeats. You do a pre-chorus, then a chorus. Usually after 2 choruses, however, it kind of gets repetitive, and then you have to do something different. So there would usually be a solo instrument or a build-up again, like another pre-chorus. But this will lead up to the final chorus, and then that will lead up to the conclusion. And the conclusion can be either another chorus or a completely different idea that just ends the song on a high note, or sometimes in a low note. After my research, after some research, I did some interviews during the first semester of my ISM year. I started off searching up audio engineers in Frisco, and I found very limited results. So I looked further, and I found a lot of people around Dallas, Louisville, and around the whole Metroplex. I started off my first interview with Marcus Chaney. He has a very nice studio, Luminous Sound. It was the hybrid analog digital one that I was talking about earlier. They have 3 recording rooms, one for digital, one for analog, and then one with I forget what he called it, but it was an analog machine that could be converted to digital within the machine. It was really cool. And he kind of taught me fundamentals in audio engineering, because up until this point, I had just been research that had been giving me all my knowledge. But he kind of showed me first-hand experience what to do. I'd never seen a mixing board before. It's the really big board with all the knobs, and it just bewildered me seeing all those knobs. I had no idea what they did. But I knew how it worked in a digital sense. But when he translated to me from digital to the board, this knob does this, it all made sense. Because what analog and digital, while they are very different, they're actually incredibly common, because they're the same thing, just with different interfaces. And so Marcus Chaney, he gave me a very good idea of what audio engineering is like, just in general. My next interview was with Matt Kennedy at Audio Dallas. This was the studio that was completely analog. And I was interested in analog recording at the time, because I had just seen Marcus show me all this analog stuff and how it translates to digital. And so I kind of knew a pretty good amount about digital, but I knew nothing about analog. So when I heard that Audio Dallas was a completely analog recording setup, I went there and I asked if I could interview Marcus or Paul, and I got, not Marcus, Matt or Paul, and I got Matt Kennedy to interview. And what I learned is that analog recording is usually preferred by local bands who think that the warm sound will make them get big or whatever. But usually when you're already established, you know that you can just go digital because it's cheaper and you'll make more money off of it. But for local bands, they want to establish themselves as a musical presence, and they think that they can only do that with analog. So analog recording is still used and preferred by many musicians today, but it's just local versus big artists big artists normally don't use analog. My next interview was with Matt Islanian, who was Matt Quijada's mentor last year. Matt Quijada studied audio engineering as well last year, and I just wanted to follow in his footsteps and see what it was like. So I talked to Matt Islanian about ISM and how he thought about it. And he told me, I asked him, because in this point in the year I was thinking, okay, I have 2 solid people to ask me my mentor, but I still have more interviews to do. But I kind of wanted to see how I could already ask them that I have interest in them being my mentor. So he kind of told me the key that Matt had for getting him as a mentor, Matt Quijada. He said persistence is very vital when you're asking someone such a big favor like that. Matt Quijada asked Mr. Islanian over 6 or so times if he could be his mentor. And I learned a lot from that, because prior to that, I wasn't really a big email guy. They would email me, I'd email them first. But I learned from this that it's really good to get your name out there, email them first, let them know that you're interested. Also, I learned some good time management tips from this interview, because it was my first time driving on a highway. I just recently got my license, and I was 30 minutes late, and I had to leave 30 minutes. I had to cut my interview in half because I was 30 minutes late, but I learned that I could have gotten 30 minutes more knowledge from him, and it would have been very helpful for me. But if I was on time, if I wasn't late, I would honestly have much more knowledge from Matt Islanian. My next interview, I kind of had a gap between my 3rd and 4th interview, because no one was really saying yes to my interviews. They were all very busy. Audio engineering you're very busy all the time, because you have musicians who have full-time jobs or in college, and they can't really do anything. They have weird hours, like some people will record from 8 p.m. to midnight, or they'll have midday stuff, and it's kind of impossible to predict a schedule for them. So I kind of had to work around some schedules, and my next interview with David Burt, I scheduled it a month or so in advance, just so he knew he had to be there that day, and I knew I had to be there that day. David Burt is a freelance audio engineer who works in Frisco, one of the few audio engineers in Frisco that I could find. He used to work at the Frisco Discovery Center, and now he teaches audio engineering classes at Collin. And I learned a lot about freelance from him because freelance really intrigued me at the time, because when you're a freelance audio engineer, you can kind of do whatever you can find. You're not tied down to anything. Like Matt Kennedy, he has to do analog recording because that's all he has with him. He only has his analog machines and his devices like that. But if David Burt, if someone says, hey, can you come record for us? Sure. Hey, sure, I can do that. Hey, do you want to come make a film score for this movie I'm doing? Yeah, I can do that. He's not tied down to a single job. And this is what I was kind of looking for, because when I wanted to study audio engineering, I wanted to study everything. Because some people think audio engineering is just producers, but it's not. It's also technicians, producers, composers. It's all aspects that go into the audio technology that make the music we listen to on the radio, in movies, music videos, anything like that. So I really liked learning the freelance experience from David Burt. My next interview was over the phone because he's a very busy man. Jocelyn D'Souza he kind of had a one-hit wonder thing. He had a commercial aired in an Italian soccer tournament or something, and he made $1,000 per second from the commercial. So it was a 15-second commercial, so he pocketed $15,000 from that. And he's never really had anything big after that, but he's very into composing music. So when I called him, he talked to me about what my final project was going to be, what I wanted to do, and I had a huge interest in composition because I had recently taken music theory, AP Music Theory, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning how math and music work together to actually build a song. So he gave me some tips in composition. He told me to research song structure like I did. He told me to think more outside the box and be different from anyone else. Don't just go with the flow. You kind of have to, if you want to get recognized, you have to compose something that no one else has done before. Finally, my last interview was Patrick Thompson. He was a film score person. At this time, I was getting into my original work, which I'll get to next. And he worked with film score people who done films for, especially on the PBS network. And I forget what the show was, but he was the head film score engineer for about 2 years there. And now he's doing his own little freelance thing. So I learned a lot about film score from him, about how you want to make the movies line up with the music and how it has to mean something, how the music can make a bad movie turn into a good movie just on how the audience feels. Music can do a lot to a listener's feelings or how they interpret something. I finally decided to choose David Burt as my mentor, just because of the variety that he offered me through freelance, but also because he lives in Frisco and it'd be very easy to do jobs with him. He's a technician, and I kind of feel like that complements me because I'm very musically oriented, and it was the technical side of audio engineering where I really needed help. So since mentorship, I've run the sound for a comedy show in Louisville. I helped him teach audio engineering classes at Collin, and now we're going on a weekly schedule where we run the sound for a New Life Community Church in Frisco. And it's very fun. I'm enjoying myself very much. He's a very, very, very talented person. For my original work this year, as I was saying, a good friend of mine at work, David Hinch, he is an independent filmmaker, and he makes films for this UIL program that I still don't know the name of and he wouldn't tell me. But his most recent film, The Moments, meant a lot to him. So he didn't want to get the standard iTunes music or any song he could get off someone else. He wanted his own original music. So he approached me about this, and I thought instantly, this is a really good challenge for me. I would actually really like to do this. When I started off doing it, I didn't think it'd turn out to be my original work. But as I worked toward it, I realized that I was applying my ISM knowledge to what I was actually doing here. And I really liked how it turned out. Here, I don't have the full movie because it's about 12 to 15 minutes. I just have a clip from one of the scenes. And you've all seen this before, but... Can you turn it up, Coach Huff? I personally don't like the movie, but I think the music turned out great. once I get back there. So I think the results turned out really well. The whole movie itself, it's just about your typical teenage love story. But I kind of, at first when I saw it, I didn't like it. But once I put my own music in it, I really liked watching the movie. I've watched it several times now. And one of the proudest moments I've ever had was, even though it's a little independent movie, no one's really going to see it except for the judges of the UIL thing. I really enjoyed seeing my name come down as the credits scrolled, and it was just a great moment for me. And it was a challenge to do this because he had given me all the raw film with people talking and audio and everything, because I wasn't actually a part of the recording the dialogue process, and it was very bad dialogue audio. I think he just used his camera's microphone, and I had to kind of work around that because the talking in the movie was really quiet, and so I had to make quiet music. So sometimes during the movie, you have to turn up the sound in order to compensate for the low audio. And at that scene, there's no vocals and anything, so it's just normal sounding, normal level music. It was also a challenge to sync up the video with the music because I made about 20 or so minutes of music, and it's only a 12-minute film. So he kind of helped me with lining it up how he wants to do it, but without him, I wouldn't really know how to do anything because he's the movie maker. So working with him was really helpful, but the challenge was working without him when I had to just write the music based on what he just gave me. My final product this year, I'm making an original album. It's my first time making full-length songs, as I had said before. I've written little clips, just little things that I think sound good. I've never written intro to conclusion full song. I'm going to incorporate all kinds of techniques that I've learned this year: gain staging, use of DAWs, recording vocals, and instruments too. When I started out this album, I thought that I really wanted to make around 8 or 10 songs. I really underestimated how long it takes to make a song. So that was kind of too large of a goal for me to make. Now, I would really love to make a full 8 to 10 song album. I probably will continue doing this even after the ISM year is done. And that was the challenge for me, was realizing that, hey, you're going to die if you make 8 to 10 songs. You don't have that much time. And I'm making as much as I can. I'm still working till May 19th. Right now I have 2 full songs, and my goal is to have 5 or 6. So I'm very happy. I'm happy with the first 2 songs that come out. The first songs and the album cover will be made by Harrison because he's a graphic artist. The first song is a continuation of the song that I made for The Moments. When I made the song for The Moments, which is the title of the movie, it was just slow. So it's the same song up until the beginning, but I added some more things towards the end. And it's only a little clip from it, and because the whole song would be too long. So I'm just going to play this for you. I added drums and percussion because I thought it sounded nice. It gives it more of a song feeling. And it cuts off at a weird time just because that's what SoundCloud and iTunes does. And for this track, it was a full version song from my original work, like I said, and it includes usage of a variety of DAW instruments. So I used pianos, guitars, basses, I used some soundscape things, and I used percussion instruments more recently. And I really liked how that one turned out. The full song's nice too, and I think I'm pretty sure for my final presentation, I'm just going to do the clip like that, not the whole song. The next song is kind of an interesting one. My dad, he works at home in his own little office, and he has this Google Voice program where people can text you and call you without using your actual phone, so you can turn it off and on whenever you want. And I've heard this ringtone probably over 300 times now, and it really annoys me. But I started to see potential in it, and how could I use that and make a song out of it? And this one was really fun for me because it's just such a basic little five note song, 5-note little ringtone. And so I made it's kind of a pop song, and it's fast paced, and it has percussion and drums, and it's very, very fun. I might want to turn this one up. It cuts off weird again. And this was a heavy usage of synths because I wanted to mimic this sound that the ringtones make and get as close as possible. And I kind of did a pretty good job, actually. I just recorded that on my phone, put it on YouTube, and just listened to it over and over and over again until I could get that exact sound. And percussion, once again, it's all DAW instruments. The next song I'm making currently with a friend of mine is the obesity rap. He's a good friend of mine, Henry Grimshaw. He's a freshman this year. In 8th grade, he had a project for health, and he had to make a song about the negative effects of obesity. And I wish I could pull up the YouTube video, but it's private, and it's very, very bad. And so I saw potential within it. And what I wanted to do was turn the song into like a real rap song. And I'm very excited to start recording vocals with Henry. We decided not to start recording until after all this AP test thing is over, so it's kind of last minute, but we'll get it done just in time for final presentation night. And it implements the usage of recording vocals and that I studied and through my research. And it's more drum and bass oriented than these other songs, which are based on piano and synth. Because rap songs, you need just basically a heavy bass and a sick beat, and that's what you can get for a good song. Unlike those previous two songs where it actually had to have some melodic structure and some piano, interesting music theory types of things in it. The next song that I'm doing, I also agreed not to do till after AP tests, was 2+1. This isn't an original song by me, it's simply a recording that I'm doing with my friend David Dong. Him and I have a duet this year on marimba, and it's very, very beautiful, and I love how it sounds, and we play it very well together. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a professional recording of it. I'm also going to do a video of it too with this camera. But this is really a challenge for me because a marimba, it not only produces sound from the wooden bars that it has, a marimba is like a xylophone but just bigger. And it also produces sound from resonators that send sound outwards and underneath it. So in order to record a marimba very well, it requires 4 microphones minimum. And I have 2. I'm just going to borrow 2 from someone else, but I've never recorded with more than just 2 microphones. I recorded my friend Abby with 2 microphones, and that was a challenge because I had to get them perfectly aligned in order to get the perfect French horn sound. It will also require me to blend in those 4 microphones, because if I just get the microphone with a resonator, it won't be the same as the one that's just the bar. So I have to kind of blend it in to make it sound like it's a marimba and not just a bar sound or a resonator sound, and that's going to be a challenge too. Overall in ISM, I have not only discovered what it takes to be an audio engineer, but I've also learned a lot about myself too. Going into this year, I was a mess. I'd been going from junior year, and I was transitioning to this kind of mature version of myself, but the transition was awful. And I feel like ISM has actually really helped me get better at a lot of things. Professional and speaking skills, you should have just remembered my first interview with Coach Goff. I was pretty bad at doing interviews, but I've had, since that, around 8 or 9 interviews with potential mentors, and also I've had scholarship interviews, work interviews, and they've just been getting better and better just because of what I've learned from ISM. Making connections too. This is with LinkedIn. I feel like it's important to, if you work in a certain field, you should know who else works in that field so you can collaborate. Like I did with my friend David Hinch. We both worked at Kroger, and who would have thought that 2 little cashiers who worked at Kroger would collaborate to make a movie? It was really interesting how far connections can go. Making your dreams a reality. Yeah, I've always wanted to make a full song, make an album for myself, and